Well, good morning, brothers and sisters. We've come to the end of another week. Today in our Bible reading plan, we're in the book of Psalms, chapter 41. So Psalm 41, and while you're opening your Bible, let me just really encourage you to be in church Sunday worshiping Jesus here at First Baptist. As always, we have our traditional service in the middle at 9:45, and then our two contemporary services, one at 8:30, the other at 11 o'clock. I preach the same sermon in all services, so you come, invite someone to come with you, pray for the services, pray for the persons you invite, and allow God to use you and somebody else's life to help them meet Jesus and grow as a disciple. Psalm 41. This psalm is similar to many of them. The author is in a difficult spot. He's got enemies. He talks about all of that, etc. But in the midst of that, there are a couple of things he said that really caught my attention and spoke to my heart. One is in verse 1, the very first verse, where he said, "How blessed is he who considers the helpless. The Lord will deliver him in a day of trouble." How blessed is he, or how blessed is he who considers the helpless. Some Bibles will translate that weak. I think the King James says poor. The Hebrew word is the idea of someone who is vulnerable, someone who is weak, etc., at a low point in life. And when the psalmist is writing this, he's at a low point in his life. When you read the entire psalm, we learn that he's dealing with sickness, he's been slandered, he has false friends, people he thought were his friends but really weren't, even one that he thought was a close friend who literally betrayed him. And on top of all that, he's aware, he's conscious of his own sinfulness as well. And so he is in a vulnerable, weak situation, and he knows that he needs God's mercy in his own life. In the midst of that, he said, God favors, blesses those who consider, who think about, who care about, who help, who intentionally consider and do something to help the weak, the poor, the vulnerable, the etc. And I think about life, people who are sick, people who are homeless, people who are orphans, widows, refugees, immigrants, people who experience spousal abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, etc. The weakest of the weak, the vulnerable, those who are hurting. He says God blesses those who care about the ones who need help, those who are vulnerable, those who are weak. And I think about it in my own life. I need to care more about those people. I do care, and I care more now than I did years ago, but I still need to care more. Our church does. We care, and that is seen in a lot of different things we do, but we can always care more. Our nation is a generous nation and cares. But there are ways in which our nation doesn't care, and we can do better. We need to care more. Our own denomination, the Southern Baptist Convention, we care through sin relief and disaster relief and many other ministries. We care, but what we can and need to do better. In recent years, we've become aware that we have been a failure when it comes to really caring for those who have been sexually abused, especially by clergy. We need to do better, and so I think it's important for us to realize that we can always care more for those who are vulnerable, those who are weak, and that what he says is that God blesses, God favors those who do that. Real quickly, the other verse that spoke to me is near the end of the psalm, verse 12. He says, "As for me, you uphold me." God, you uphold me in my integrity, and you set me in your presence forever. Now look at the first part of that verse. As for me, God, you uphold me in my integrity. What he's saying is that no matter what's going on in my life, God, when I have integrity, you are with me. You uphold me, you strengthen me, you help me. I have no right to expect God's help when I lack integrity. Now, God in love and grace may choose to help me and bless me when I don't have integrity, but it is wrong of me to expect it of God or demand it of God when I don't have integrity. So God's looking. I guess what I'm saying from these two verses is that God looks, and when he sees certain things, he says, I'm going to bless that person. I'm going to show favor to that person. And that blessing and favor can take many different forms. Now, he may bless people who don't do these things, but not always, and they certainly have no right to expect it. But if you do these two things, God says, I'm going to show you favor. What are those two things? You have integrity. And number two, you care about the vulnerable. So you have integrity, and you help those who are weak and are hurting. And God says, if you do that, I'm going to bless you. I'm going to show you favor in life. That favor, as I said, can be in a lot of different forms. But God's going to show favor to those who care about the weak, the vulnerable, and those who have integrity. And if we don't do those two things, don't have those two things, we have no right to expect God to favor us. Something to think about. Maybe some things need to change in our lives. Some of us maybe need to become more generous and more caring toward those who have needs. Maybe some of us need to become more consistent when it comes to integrity, not just in public, but also in private. God bless you. I'll see you Sunday at God's house, and then Monday with another devotion.